When people talk about addiction in restaurants, most people immediately think alcohol, drugs, smoking, those type of things. And yes, those are real struggles. And I will be touching bases on that in a future video. But today I want to talk about something a little bit different, a different type of addiction that no one really ever discusses or even really knows they're addicted to, the addiction to staying busy. Now, I didn't realize I had this problem until I actually stepped away from being a chef and in the past year or so, kind of just dealing with life. As I mentioned before, life is life for me right now. But for years of my life revolved around the next shift, the next holiday, the next catering event, promotion, the next rush. There was always something waiting for me at work. And I personally convinced myself that being busy meant I was successful. That if I wasn't constantly moving, then I wasn't accomplishing anything. Then one day everything kind of slowed down, and just going through life and just actually sitting down and thinking what is going on, um, and instead of enjoying it, I got very uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't sit still. I started just doing random things or picking up my phone every couple minutes and, just, I just didn't know what to do with myself. I, I'd even think that maybe I should pick up another shift sometimes, not because I needed the money, it was because I didn't know how to simply just sit still. And that's when it hit me. Maybe I wasn't addicted to work exactly. Maybe I was addicted to staying busy. Restaurants reward people who never stop. The employee who always says yes, the one who picks up every shift that's available, the one that works all those doubles, the ones that come in on their days off, the ones that very rarely take vacations. We celebrate that person. We call them dedicated, dependable. The workhorse. But very rarely do we ask them like, "Are you okay? Are you good? You need anything?" Sometimes staying busy becomes a way of just avoiding life, and that was a big one for me. I didn't realize that I just sometimes I would just go to work, sometimes just to go to work. Like maybe I didn't want to have a difficult conversation with my spouse. Yeah, or deal with certain issues. It's easier to stay late than admit that you're exhausted. It's easier to volunteer for another shift than to sit alone in your thoughts and actually have to fucking deal with them. Because when the restaurant is loud, you don't have to hear you don't have to hear what's going on inside your own head. You all you hear is the tickets and voices from everybody else. I know that feeling. I was living that shit for years. I thought I was building a career, but I wasn't. Somewhere along the way, I stopped building myself. I stopped checking on my own health. I stopped checking on my relationship and building that up. My own happiness. Everything became about work. And here's the scary part. People, like I said, people praise that. People praise that's what you're doing. And they don't really tell you how hard, or they always just tell you how hard of a worker you are, how dependable you are, how much they appreciate you. But when the burnout finally catches up to you, those same people, they can't recover your health for you. They can't do shit for you. They can't repair your marriage like at all. Your marriage is done. They can't give you back the birthdays and all the holidays you missed. They can't replace the time that you lost with your kids. Being busy isn't the same as being fulfilled. Working more isn't living more. And productivity should never become your identity because one day the restaurant won't need your ass no more. Someone will cover your station. Someone's gonna run your line for you and do all the pre-shifts and cover your section and cover that hostess stand or hit the dish pit. That's just the reality of the business. That's just the business we're in. So the question becomes, who are you? Who are you when you're not working? Can you sit with your family? Can you, without checking your schedule and checking in on the restaurant? Can you enjoy your day off without feeling guilty? Can you go on that vacation without worrying about what's happening at fucking work? Can you simply exist without needing to stay busy? Those are hard questions, but I think they're very important ones. Now, I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm not saying that at all. Like when you're there, work hard. And I'm proud of all my industry workers, all my chefs, my servers, my bartenders, all that. We worked hard. It made the life that we had. So working hard is not the problem. It's just being addicted to it. You know, build up your health, build up your faith, build up your family, your friendships, your hobbies, build up those memories, build a life that's worth coming home to, because one day the rush will end, as I always say. And that's when your growth begins. You know, and I hope that you're coming back to a life that is worth waiting for outside of the restaurant, you know. And just want to say, you guys, thank you again for watching After the Rush. If you ever felt addicted to staying busy, just let me know in the comments. Like, comment your story on there a little bit, you know, and send this to someone that you think that might need to hear this. Send this to a loved one or a family member that is in the restaurant industry that maybe needs to know they need to think about their life. You know, think about if they're addicted to work. What are they doing outside of work? You know, I think that a lot more people struggle with this than we actually realize, you guys. And remember, guys, the rush ends, your growth begins. Thanks, guys, for watching.